All right. Well, we are very thankful for the opportunity to go to Cambodia, and we would definitely not be able to do that without the support and prayers of our church family here. And just a great blessing it was for you guys to get behind us. And we have little bookmarks for everybody at the back of the table, I think, and some candies. But after the service, you guys can everybody can pick up one. And on the verse it says, we really thought about this. It says Isaiah 9:2, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light, and they that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. And that's talking about Jesus Christ coming and being the light of the world. But it's really indicative of the Cambodian people lived in darkness for so many years. Buddhists for actually since the 900s. And just walking in darkness, thinking they had the light. But now you really see a great gospel presence there, and people are getting saved, and hundreds and hundreds of people are getting saved almost every week. So there's a lot of work to do, but so it was really neat. I'll just pull up my notes here. I'll stick to my notes so I don't. There was a lot in it that I could say, but I'll just stick to my notes. There was some really interesting things. And probably the first interesting thing that we came across was actually a Buddhist funeral. And it was actually 3 days of mourning and 3 days of banging pots and pans and making all kinds of noise, trying to usher their loved one into the next life, into a better life. And really what came to my mind was the verse where Paul said, but brethren, I would not have you ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that sorrow not, even as others that have no hope. And this funeral was a sound of absolutely no hope. There was chanting, there was all kinds of stuff going on, and it actually sounded really eerie at times and very demonic almost. And I thought, what a sad way how to usher somebody into the next life. They had no hope, they had no peace, and there was absolutely no comfort. And I just thought, I'm so glad that I'm a Christian, and I know where my loved ones are, and I know where I'm going, and just a great comfort that we know. But they are ones that preach that they have the light, that they know the pathway to heaven, and yet they are so far away from that. They had the pagodas, which is kind of the Buddhist worship houses, and that was, you'd see that every little village. And oftentimes down the same street, you would see 3 or 4 of them. And so Buddhist is very, very strong and prevalent in there, and people would be worshiping and burning candles and incense and all kinds of things. So it was really quite a thing to see that so prevalent over there. The monks, they'll tout themselves. Actually, you can be a monk for 1 day, or you can be a monk for 1 month, or a year, or your whole life. So it depends how long you want to be a monk. But as a Christian, you're a Christian your whole life. But if you want to be a monk, you can be a monk for 1 day. I thought that was pretty interesting. And so they teach that they are the teachers they are the leaders to the light and the right path. But they truly walk in darkness. 93% of people claim Buddhism as their main religion. And numbers is very, very important to them. So number 6 and number 9 is the most important, and that is good karma. If you have the number 6 on your license plate, and even if you have the number 9, you'll pay more on your license plate for those numbers, and that means that you have good karma. And it's all about having good karma and doing good to others, because then good will come to you, And so that's really interesting. There was a few things that really jumped out, and that was the 2 extremes of society. What we saw was the haves and the haves not. And you want to talk about inequality, and you could tell that people who had a lot and people who had absolutely nothing. Usually the people who have everything would cozy up to the government, and they would be either high military ranking officials or they would be government officials, you know. And those were the people who had the fancy cars, and they'd actually drive fancier cars than you and me, like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff like that. So I'm like, wow, they are living. But then you go and look at the other people who don't have anything, and they're just like, if they were biking, then they were just walking and stuff like that. And so just an extreme from have everything to have absolutely nothing. And that's really where you would see some driving really nice cars, and then some driving really nothing at all. Or, you know, they'd actually have duct tape holding their motor up in their little scooter. Like, it was quite something to watch. And like fluid leaking out of their scooters too. I thought, like, But anyways, it's a system that does not take care of the poor people or the orphans. They have no government assistance. They don't even consider even doing anything for the poor people or for the orphans, and that really leaves them in a dire spot, because oftentimes what you would see is a mom who would have, you know, children, but she would have no person to take care of her. So if she wanted to get with another man or marry another man, the man would usually not want to take on the extra children. So the mother would literally just drop the kids off on the side of the road or dump them in the garbage dump. And even this year alone, in Pastor Crow, they've picked up about another 20 kids from the garbage dump and surrounding villages. And that's just an amazing thing. So there's no thing to help the widows or anybody who have lost loved ones. Like, they are just out there collecting whatever they can for the day, just to pay enough for their food. There's actually very few orphans, but hundreds, if not thousands, of abandoned kids. And this blew me away. We went on a tuk-tuk, and the teens and the little kids like to drive with us down the street in the tuk-tuk. And some of the teens were saying, hey, my parents live over there, and my aunt lives here, and my grandpa lives over there, you know. And they knew exactly where where their family was, but they didn't. But they had nobody wanted them at all. And I thought, like, how is that to grow up in a society where you know that your family doesn't want you? You know, and so abandoned children is almost a dime a dozen over there. But in the orphanage, we saw that even though it's all orphans and abandoned kids, you would think like, oh, there's tons of problems, but we saw a really close-knit family there, and it was just really neat how the older kids were taking care of the younger kids, and it was just a beautiful thing to see how God was bringing all these orphans and just bringing them into one family. And that really the verse came to me that says, God sitteth as solitary in families, he bringeth them out which are bound with chains, you know. And so God looks down at these orphans, these abandoned children who have absolutely nobody, and he's like, hey, I want to rescue you out of what you're out of the bonds of chains. What's so remarkable, we had a tour guide that actually took us to some of the temples to Angkor Wat and stuff. Just an amazing opportunity to see that. And the tour guide said, to get to heaven, one of the greatest things that you can do is honor your mother. You have to honor your mother to get to heaven. That's the path of light for them. And mothers are held in high regard, yet it is acceptable for mothers to abandon their children. And I thought, you know, mothers are held in high regard, but then it's okay if mothers drop their kids off at the garbage dump, you know. And that's something that I hadn't quite reconciled quite yet. And then the unsavory and debauchery nature of that is that people being little more than just a nuisance, you know, just seen as a nuisance on the street, you know, that goes into the subject of being used in really wrong ways, and actually they are often subjected to wicked and awful treatment. And just the stories that you'd hear of these kids and what they had to go through and endure, and just how God rescued them out of them. And so when we were supporting the children's home, you're literally rescuing kids from a life of absolute evil and something of absolutely horrible circumstances, and giving them hope and giving them a life where they can learn about the love of Jesus Christ. So that was just so amazing to see. We had great opportunities with the children too. The first one, we actually took them out to Burger King, and this was the first time that many of them had ever sat in a restaurant of any type. So they hadn't sat in a restaurant at all, and they got all fancied up and all dressed up, and it was like they were going to a high-end dinner stakeout place, and they were so excited, and just watching them eat their first hamburger and their fries and stuff, and just the joy that it brought to them. I thought, like, that, you got to see that to experience that. And then we did a lot of activities with them and taught them about the Christmas story. They never heard about Jesus Christ coming to earth before, and this was the first time that they've ever heard about Christmas. And then we had a Christmas party, and that was just a wonderful time. Pastor Crow brought a quick message about, a short little message of how Jesus is the greatest gift that was ever given. And then we gave them we passed out simple gifts for them. And most kids in North America, they would be ungrateful for that, but the joy that they had, we'd give them little Tonkas and a little bouncy ball and stuff, and they like opened up their gift with such amazement, and they were just so happy to have their little bouncy ball, and that was their gift, and just the little that they have, and yet it meant the complete world to them. And then Pastor Crow, I was kind of hoping to go with him, but he's going to all these northern villages. And the thing about these northern villages is that the military bases, when you join the military, you don't join for 4 years and then you're off. You actually join for life. So they don't let you retire until they tell you. So you'll be 60 or 70, even 80 sometimes before they tell you that you can retire from the military. And when they assign you to a post, you do not leave that post. So these people have been living on these military bases for 10, 15 years without ever going to a city, without even leaving their post. They are not allowed to. You can't take time off in the Cambodian government. So these people have been stuck here in all these villages waiting to hear the gospel. And Pastor Crow, for the very first time in history, has actually been able to preach to these people who's never heard the gospel before. And it all started because of that water filter system. They dug that one well, and they brought that one military base in water, and then that spread like wildfire. And now in the springtime, he's going to preach to another 20 military bases. And so just an amazing opportunity. About 300 people got saved this time around. So I think they were right up about 1,000 people got saved this year alone with Pastor Crow's ministry. And that's just one of many. And the interesting thing is that the Cambodian government, they don't care for their own. They don't even care for their military. So the only thing the military gets is guns and bullets, but food, water, clothing, all that stuff, they have to provide for themselves. And so they are scrounging for their food, plus they have to be on duty as well. And so they just have a really tough time. In fact, Pastor Crow said they have these hammocks and they have no place to sleep. So they were just hanging the hammocks out in the middle of the forest, the rain's coming down, and they just get wet every single night. And that's the life that these people live in. And then if they are fortunate enough, maybe they can afford some tin, and hang some tin over the roof so they can be dry for the night. So it's just a complete foreign concept to us. But that being said, there is a lot of need for pastors to go there and to pastor these people, because they just can't travel to the next base and be taught. They have to stay at their base, and they can't leave. And so there's a lot of need for pastors and missionaries, and a lot of work that needs to happen that way. And then we went to the floating village, and that was absolutely amazing. So the people on the floating village, they speak in Vietnamese. Yeah, and so we went to a people who didn't know our language. We didn't understand them. And we didn't know them, and they didn't know us. But the Spirit of Christ was so great, and it was like you could bond, even though we didn't know them and they didn't know us. But the Spirit there was just absolutely amazing. And we had a great time singing and preaching and all kinds of things with people like that. That's just a remarkable thing, how the Spirit of Christ brings unity. And then Pastor David, Pastor David, he's taking care of the floating ministry, the floating church ministry, but also he started one in the village about an hour past the children's home. And so we went there as well, and they actually just caught about 7 cobras that week. And so there wasn't cobras that we saw, but there was plenty of cobras over there. And you just can't go walking wherever you want, because there's a lot of landmines too. So that's one of the huge detriments to the Cambodian people, is that all over there's landmines. Now they are clearing them out, but you just can't go walking in the field or walking in the jungle, because you'll probably step on a landmine and stuff. So it's a bit of a dangerous area, but it's really neat that way too. But they are doing really well in the village. There was about 70 people just meeting underneath this tin shack, and you'll see that in the video, but all it is just a tin shack, and there was 60, 70 people. And the parents were out gathering rice and harvesting rice that day, but all the kids, they biked in with their bicycles, and there was 2 or 3 of them on a bicycle, and they came, and that was just really neat to see as well. And then a few things to pray about is pray about a parent family to come and help watch the kids and to take care of the kids at the orphanage. They are running past capacity. They have just about 40 kids right now, and they're usually running about 25 children or 30 children, but they've picked up these extra 20 children. So they are running way past their capacity. And Pastor Roth is doing a great job, but it's just so much, and he has many other ministries that he's a part of. So they really need a Cambodian family just to come and help and take care of the kids, And one of the reasons is that the children, and then pray for the children at the children's home. Many of them have a lot of difficult upbringings and a lot of abuse and a lot of abandonment issues, and they have a lot of things that they need to overcome, and that really needs to happen where they can find victory in Jesus Christ and find that, hey, even though I was abandoned, yet God loves me and people love me, and there's real trauma, and it's just not made up trauma or pretend trauma. This is real trauma and real circumstances that they've come through horrible abuse and just really, really horrible things. And yet God was able to rescue them and bring them to a safe place, And that alone, just thinking about 20, 30 kids that were destined for a lot of evil in their life, and God just spared them from that. So that's what our support is doing. Our support is going to a really good cause. But pray for a parent family that can come ease the workload and really help out the children, work through a lot of the pain and the trauma and the suffering, and really find hope and victory in Jesus Christ. And that's the answer that they need. And then pray for all these villages that these people are getting saved for, and the military villages that they are getting saved, but they need pastors, they need missionaries to come and teach them. They don't even have Bibles there yet. And so there's a lot of work to do. And once again, we are just so thankful for the opportunity to go, and wish that everybody could go, but maybe one day. But there's many opportunities to go in the future. So thank you very much for your prayers and support. And we have those bookmarks, and I think those candies as well in the back. And then at this time, we'll just play the video, and you guys can kind of just see what happened there.
This is Mr. Paul. He's from Canada, so he's gonna fix a Cambodian bike that he never fixed it before. Usually, this bike is for Cambodian, yeah. And the other bikes is like Europe bike, but this one is different. It's Cambodian bike, so we need a lot of stuff to make it. So thank you very much for the